Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Megan Woods tuku ingoa e mihi ana ki te mana whenua o tēnā rohi o tēnā rohi. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. And thank you, Rebecca, for the introduction, and Brendan and the Sustainable Energy Association of New Zealand for inviting me to speak here with you this morning. And it is so wonderful to see such a full room with so many professionals dedicated to building New Zealand's renewable energy network. As many of you know and have probably heard me say on multiple occasions, our government's vision is for a thriving, low emissions economy. We have clear goals: net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, 100% renewable electricity by 2030, and 50% of all energy to be produced from renewables by 2035. I believe we can achieve this and can achieve decarbonisation without deindustrialisation. And we're already starting to see the results of our collective efforts to decarbonise New Zealand's economy. Renewable electricity generation is at a record high, from 82.2% in 2017 to 87.1% in 2022. In December 2022, we saw an all-time record quarter of 94.7% share of renewable electricity generation. And New Zealand's coal imports are at record lows. In quarter one of 2023, coal imports dropped by 36,000 tonnes, the lowest level that we've seen since 2013. Not surprisingly, emissions have been going down alongside this. For 3 years running, we've seen a decrease in emissions. Recent quarterly data from Stats New Zealand show that emissions declined by 3.5% in the 3 months to September 2022, their lowest level in 8 years. But we must keep making progress. To achieve our energy and climate goals, we must transition our economy away from fossil fuels. And as the Minister of Energy and Resources, I've been privileged to steer support and funding to many exciting projects driving this transition. This transition will require significant new investment in renewable electricity generation. As you will all know, Transpower has forecast a 68% increase in electricity generation is needed to meet demand by 2050. This means we'll need around 450 megawatts of new electricity generation capacity or demand response every year until 2050. Renewable energy generation and storage will play a key role in meeting growing electricity demand, and I know that all of you in this room are doing so much to support these goals. We have a significant investment pipeline in place. More than $4 billion worth of investment in new renewable electricity generation, distribution and transmission has been committed to projects that are in the process of being developed or construction. Just yesterday, Helios Energy announced a proposal for a 300 megawatt solar farm for the Maniapoto Plain, equivalent to powering 70,000 homes. The solar revolution is finally arriving in New Zealand. Transpower reports that we are seeing a record number of inquiries for connections to the national grid, with a lot of proposed new renewable connection capacity being for solar. The government has recognised this increased demand for solar and encouraged its adoption by giving fast-track consent to 9 solar projects this year. These 9 solar projects will add 1,147 megawatts of power to the national grid at their peak output, and that's 3 times the output of the 432 megawatt Clyde Dam. So when we start to think of it in those terms, we can see the significance that this generation is making. And it's not just utility solar that will help us meet our renewable energy needs. Rooftop solar for firms and households will make an increasing contribution. This week, the Prime Minister and I announced Labour's exciting policy to double rooftop solar in New Zealand by giving households up to a $4,000 rebate towards installing rooftop solar panels and batteries, $2,000 for the panels and $2,000 for the batteries. If re-elected, the rebate will begin from 1 April 2024, and this is several months earlier than other new initiatives to recognise the need for you and your customers to have certainty. We also recognise the need to have a trained workforce in order to do this, to make sure that we are installing these panels safely and we're not seeing some of the issues that we've seen in other countries. And we'll have more to say on this in the coming 22 days, 14 hours and 27 seconds. As part of this policy, we will develop bespoke arrangements with lease-to-own and solar as service providers to ensure a comparable incentive is provided to new customers, such as an equivalent reduction in repayment or service fees, to ensure that these businesses are not disadvantaged. The package also includes a further $20 million boost for innovative solar energy projects in local communities. Projects will include trialling solar gardens for homes to purchase or lease panels in a larger array if they cannot install rooftop solar, and smaller scale virtual power plants in new solar-enabled Kāinga Ora neighbourhoods to allow for the sharing of cheap, emissions-free electricity with non-public housing tenants, including when there are disruptions to the grid. Labour's policy also builds on our Māori and Public Housing Renewable Energy Fund, which has already delivered solar onto nearly 800 public houses and 300 Māori households to fund a further 1,000 solar installations on Kāinga Ora homes each year. Yesterday, I had the absolute privilege of meeting three men who'd moved in to a new KO development in my electorate in Wigram in Christchurch. These men had moved from some very old KO housing. All three of them actually had some form of respiratory illness. They were telling me after a month in their new home that was warm, dry, well insulated and healthy, they'd stopped using asthma inhalers. And their power bills were $49 because it was one of the KO developments that we'd put solar panels on. And the difference it had made to those people's lives shows that the many layers of benefits that these policies can have. There are so many benefits to solar, and where it makes sense, it needs to be combined with batteries. Solar PV on roofs, coupled with localised battery storage, can support household, business and community resilience, especially at times of peak power demand or when weather event-related outages occur. During Cyclone Gabriel, solar PV and battery systems provided residents with sufficient power for keeping the lights, fridges and freezers on. And this kind of resilience is crucial, especially as we know we can expect more extreme weather events that will at times take a toll on electricity networks. Labour's solar policy will mean more electricity is generated locally, reducing reliance on the grid by smoothing peaks and boosting resilience of both household and wider communities. As we have seen this year, managing peak electricity demand in winter will become more challenging in the future. We need more generation, and we also need to explore new and existing technology that will help us maximise innovative demand response in the electricity system. Any growth of renewable energy is also contributing to our goal of moving towards 100% renewable electricity. Solar is going to be an important contributor to this, and our policies are driving forward with this. While rooftop solar is in its infancy here in New Zealand, there is plenty of scope for more. And solar energy stored in batteries means we can lower peak demand in winter and not be as reliant on fossil fuels. In addition to the fast tracking that we have been doing on utility solar, we've also been consulting on how to make it easier to develop wind, solar and transmission projects. Decarbonising our energy system is critical for meeting our international climate commitments and transitioning our economy to this low emissions economy. The faster New Zealand can decarbonise, the better that is for our companies as consumers demand more sustainable products and services. Our solar policy will also lower household power costs at a time where the cost of living is a key issue for so many households. Residents who have benefited already from our solar program for Māori housing includes those in a project in Te Arawa Whānau Ora Charitable Trust to install solar panels on 14 homes in Rotorua. Over the summer, these households are reporting reductions of up to 50% or up to $850 per year in their power bills. This is a massive saving that is benefiting these whānau. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister and I met with a community that had installed solar on a papakainga development, and the stories we were hearing from the residents who were talking about what they could use the money that they were saving on their power bill. One was putting aside the money to take her kids on holiday this summer, to do the kinds of things that make a difference to growing up in New Zealand. And they're the kinds of story that make me determined that we keep going with policies like this. So we can see that solar energy has significant benefits to make electricity more affordable, improve resilience, and take us closer to decarbonisation. Today, with a commitment in this year's budget, I'm excited to announce the expansion of the Māori and Public Housing Renewable Energy Fund as announced in Budget 2023. The immediate priority is to roll out renewable energy systems for community buildings in regions affected by this year's severe weather events. This could be places such as marae, schools or civil defence centres, and offer security to the affected communities, knowing there are safe places where the lights will be on and you'll be able to boil the jug in the event of future severe weather events. The Community Energy Resilience Fund will be opened up more broadly across the country to support other projects through a mix of small and large-scale projects. So, as you can see by the long list of these initiatives and programs that our government has in place, we have a deep commitment to increasing renewable electricity generation to meet our goals and targets. And this is critical as the cost of fossil fuels climb. We know that the cheapest form of electricity will first of all be what we don't use, but the next cheapest form will be renewable. And a great tool to boost resilience is by generation at the community level. Alongside investing in communities, we are tackling the big question of what is the future of energy in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You may have heard about consultation we have underway for an energy strategy with 5 streams of policy, including a gas transition plan, offshore renewable regulation, and how to maintain a workable and competitive electricity market as we grow more renewable energy. For instance, we have huge opportunity for smarter systems to support change in how and when homes and businesses use power, including with batteries like solar, like those that we're talking about in the Labour policy providing rebates for. Labour wants as many people as possible to have access to rooftop solar to lower our emissions and power costs. That's why in consultation we are also asking about how to reduce costs of solar PV installation, including costs associated with regulatory requirements. And I invite you to check out MBIE's website for the policy documents and opportunities to have your say on these critical aspects of our energy system. Continuing with our list of achievements in this space, to encourage and incentivise more innovation projects, we've recently allocated $20 million over the next 4 years for pilots and demonstrations that help us to manage peak electricity demand through innovative renewable energy solutions with demand response capability. Ara Ake, Aotearoa's New Zealand Future Energy Centre, which we established in 2019, will administer the fund, which should be open for applications from across the country in early 2024. We've already seen examples of this type of innovation delivered by your sector, including the partnership between Ara Ake and Solar Zero on a collaborative electricity pilot to utilise solar panels and batteries on around 11,000 New Zealand homes as part of the virtual power plant to help manage winter peak demand. So as I end here today, I encourage all of you to join in the discussion on New Zealand's energy future and make your voice heard. Lastly, I'd like to thank you all for your contribution to the sustainable and renewable energy sector in New Zealand, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can continue to achieve together. To conclude, the solar sector has been at the forefront of innovation in energy for a long time. You've persisted in the face of skeptics of the sector, and your customers are reaping the benefit of your efforts. And as the energy industry, we've made significant progress to accelerate New Zealand's decarbonisation journey. We're at a pivotal moment in our history, and there is a lot at risk if policies to reduce emissions and secure our energy system for a renewable future do not continue to be implemented as we are doing now. Now is the time to go faster. Now is the time to go further and to continue to make progress, not to slow down or to turn back. Thank you again to Brendan and SEANZ for inviting me to speak to you here this morning. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Woods?
Why only 2,000 plus 2,000 for those rebates? These days the cost of install is quite significant and it's barely.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have. One of the things that we've split the rebate across batteries and panels so that we can make sure we're also having storage. This is a contribution from the government. It's not meant to cover the whole cost of the system. That's not the purpose of it. And I know within the industry, there's some people that think there shouldn't be any government rebates. We personally think that if we are going to see the uptick of solar panels across New Zealand, then the government does need to partner with households, and we need to do this in a way that is affordable, in a way that is achievable, and at a level that we can implement it. So in terms of the volume and the amounts, I think we've probably got that balance about right. But like with any policy, you'll have a check-in after the first year to see what the uptake is like. And if the uptake isn't working, then you'd need to tweak settings.
Minister Woods, you've encouraged us to keep going and not stop. The biggest stop we've got at the moment is our standards being held up. We're just wondering about the
Look, I actually have come to the conclusion over the last 12 months that in terms of our transition to renewable energy, the place that we need to innovate and that we have to see a whole lot of ways of thinking that is going to enable this is in the area of regulation. I think the technology is known for how we do this. It's the business models and it's the regulatory environment has to make sure that we're enabling all of this. Obviously, in terms of standards, we have to make sure that what we're installing is safe and that it's rolled out in a way that is that people can have confidence in the system that's being installed. But one of the things I talked about in my speech is actually around looking at the regulatory systems, regulatory settings, and making sure we've got those right. I think we need to be continually questioning whether or not the settings that we have within our energy and electricity sector are fit for purpose, because most of them weren't written for the job we've got ahead of us.
Excuse me, with respect, we're waiting for standards that are now 10 years old, and we've got equipment that we could use if those standards were just signed off.
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree with you and think that that is an area that we do need to make sure that we're moving forward of and innovating. And that is how we need to work with the sector to make sure that that we're keeping up with what is happening out there in the world.
I have a question. If you're going to subsidise and you're going to announce that and that could come in play, how as an industry are we going to deal with the lack of work because people will hold back from subsidy?
Yeah, so I mean, not everybody will be eligible for the subsidy, I guess is the first thing. So that it won't be everybody. There is only a limited amount and it will be a subsidy that is kind of not time limited, but there's a cap on it, so not everybody is going to be eligible to get it. We also recognise that we've got to move really quickly, that when you announce it, I mean, I guess we'll all know in 3 weeks whether or not that's a policy along with anyone we might go into coalition with who have also expressed some desire to have a policy in this area, whether that's the kind of policy that's going to be implemented. If that is the case, that we've recognised that as an issue and the need to work at pace. That's why we've got a 1 April implementation. Usually you'd have a 1 July implementation date on a policy because that's the start of the new budget year, but in recognition of exactly what you're talking about, we have kind of pulled that forward. But look, there's a number of details that will need to be worked through. Also how it's going to apply to landlords is also something that we want to work through in terms of the detailed design if we're in a position to implement it as a government, which obviously I sincerely hope we are.
Minister Woods, thank you for your presentation. Just picking up on your comment around safety and quality, is there a conversation that potentially any subsidy may be limited to who can apply for that subsidy as per the major retail banks with their sustainable energy loans through SEANZ members, or are you're thinking that it would be open to all and sundry?
Look, one of the things, and I was talking to Brendan as we were coming in here, we have to avoid what we've seen happen in other countries, which does lead people to lose confidence and faith in putting solar on their rooftops, and making sure that we do have safety is a key consideration. As I said, this is an election policy we'll need to work through, but I mean, I envision that, and we've had some preliminary conversations with some of the retail banks that are doing the 0% loans on solar, that there will be a lot of people that actually will use that bank lending component alongside the grant. So I think de facto you'd have that applying anyway, but I think there's certainly conversations to be had in that space, because for me, I want solar to succeed. I don't want us to have some incidents that make people question whether this is a safe option for their home.
Are you going to win the elections?
Yes, that's the plan.
Why, how did you come to the 2,000? I mean, in 2,000 with the battery.
So one
of other parties, like Green Parties, come to like 6,000 plus a loan of up to 36,000. Seems quite light, to be honest.
Well, what you need to do is put this policy alongside of our deep retrofit policy. So we also have a policy that is around insulation, double glazing, removing gas appliances in terms of that deep retrofit of a house, and that's up to 18,000. So actually, when you put Labor's policy, which is up to $22,000 in grants for a household, that is the most that any party is offering in terms of grants. A big component of what the Green Party is offering is actually in the loan space. So the reason we're not doing the loans is because I don't want us to jump straight to that where we do already have some commercial offerings out there, like a number of banks are now starting to do 0% loans in this space. There is a cost to the government borrowing and lending to people. If that's not a cost we have to bear because it's being provided for elsewhere, I want to explore that. But as I said, we'll have to review that after 12 months. But actually, when you look at what the direct government contribution under the policies, Labor's actually the highest of anything that's on offer. But I think the good news is that you can see that Labor and the Greens, who are obviously would be a coalition partner for us, have a desire to help households be part of how we decarbonise our economy.
So where is Labor going to find all this money?
It's coming from the Climate Emergency Response Fund. So if you've asked me a political question, so I'll give you a political answer. We won't be using that money to pay for tax cuts that are unfunded. We'll be using it to decarbonise our economy, what it was meant for.
Megan, how do you arrive at the cap for combined household wealth to be eligible for this?
So the way in which we've arrived at that is that we do see that there's a loan component to this as well. So actually for people to be able to, we want to make this available to as many households as possible. That's two professionals earning $125,000 a year is not an unknown scenario for many New Zealand homes. And so we have set the income caps much higher. Then for many of our other policies that we've had in the past, like Warmer Kiwi Homes, it's the same for our deep retrofit policy, because this is about broadening out the scope. It's also 1.5 times the median house price that this is eligible for, because we want this to be available for as broad a range as people as possible. In terms of those more targeted interventions, that's where the community energy projects, that's where the more solar panels on state houses, all those kind of things come into play. So it's about looking what we can do right across the spectrum to help as many people as possible be part of this.